All right, I think we've got everybody, so I'll go ahead and start with a quick opening statement. And what I'll do then is I'll share my screen and go through the class, have a few talking points on each one of the young men, and then be happy to take some questions. Might even take a break halfway through. I think with some gray shirt kids that we've already announced last year that'll be joining our program in the month of January as we start the second semester. Our class will be around 22, which is kind of by hook or by crook. We got to kind of that number, which is kind of our sweet spot, somewhere between 22, 20, a maximum of 30 counting on walk-ons. And so it wasn't easy. I think that was the hallmark of this class, is that things were different and challenging. And I think what we tried to do as a staff was take less of a fishing approach and more of a hunting approach. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes, starting back last spring, we'd have our coaches all over the country evaluating literally tens of thousands of prospects to drill it down to these 22 guys. And in this particular case, what we decided we were going to do is focus in on kids that we knew something about, because we weren't going to have the luxury of bringing guys on campus for official visits or having camps in the summer. And so there was a lot of challenges that were presented because of that. And so, to use that fishing and hunting analogy, instead of casting a fishing net out there and reeling a bunch of guys in and then deciding which ones we were going to keep, we had to be really disciplined. We had to evaluate them. We had to rank them. We had to recruit them. And so that took more of a sniper rifle approach. And that's the fishing versus hunting analogy, is we knew we were going after, hey, we need X amount of guys on the defensive line. This is what we're looking for. Only bring guys to the table that have these characteristics. And I think that discipline really helped us to be able to put together a quality class. You can see the emphasis on the state of Montana clearly. And we feel like these vast majority of these kids were committed to us for a long time. And certainly credit BJ Robertson and the job that he does building relationships, which is what recruiting is all about throughout the state. But you can also see a lean towards my home state of the state of Idaho, as well as another young man from Wyoming, which we've had very good luck in the last couple of years. We've got a young man from Canada, and then you kind of see that still have those good Texas ties with a couple guys from Texas, and then a little bit of Jimmy Beal's influence in bringing in some Arizona talent. And so I think it's a very well-rounded class. I think we met a ton of needs. The old adage of, you ask me if this is a good class today, why don't we wait a couple years and then I'll tell you, always holds true. But clearly we feel very good about these young men. And the thing that we feel really good about is that, there's some core things that we look for from an athletic standpoint that are measurable. There's that length, athleticism, speed, flexibility, durability. Those are all things that are certainly measurable, but the things that really, in my mind, separate this group are the things that you can't necessarily put a clock or a tape measure to. And that's not just their football intelligence, but who they are as students, because we know this is a demanding academic environment here at Montana State, how competitive they are. And I think that's played out simply by watching who these guys are and the number of championships that these guys either won or competed for. And one thing that was really important to me was they were loyal. They told us a long time ago, hey, this is the right place for us. They spent their own money to get on our campus. Every single young man we signed in this class was on our campus. And we could not bring them on official visits. They didn't come on campus necessarily in the beautiful months of June and July. They got here when they could get here. They set up the ability to do campus tours with our folks across campus, just like any other student, so that they could get a feel for whether this was the right place or not. And they bought into who we are and what we're about, and the traction that we have in this program and the direction that we're going. And I think this is going to be just another class on top of another. I feel like the reason we're where we're at, because we recruited well. And I don't think this group's any different. And so we'll go ahead and dig in with that being said. And so I'll share the screen right now. This is going to be done alphabetically. And we'll see if I can figure this out. You never know. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So this is why we never let Bill host us. I always have Bill over to your house. Oh, I'm the host. Okay. All right, here we go. We'll give this a try. Yep, much better. Thank you. Okay. There we go. All right. So one of the things that I don't know if you guys were following on social media today, but I thought I want to give a little tip of the hat to our creative team. I thought, you've got a ton of different, everybody's trying to make a splash with how they're introducing their class, but I love the fact that we got to see these kids without helmets on. And I thought that gave us a chance to kind of see their personality. So I really liked how it was a little bit more interactive, perhaps, even though it was only a one-sided conversation. So it was really good. Starting off with Eli Abbey, quarterback athlete. We recruited him as a safety from Laurel High School. I can't remember how long it had been since the Locomotives won a state championship, but it had been a while, and they wouldn't have done it without Eli. And he's a tremendous athlete overall. Really, his junior film is what primarily we recruited him off of. My program comparison for him was Braden Conkle. Very, very physical, downhill guy. Didn't take as many shots on guys as he did a year ago. I'm sure the head coach was saying, hey, you're our quarterback. We need you on the other side of the ball. And all he did was lead them to that first state title and forever. And so, guy who's got tons of ties to the program here. His dad started out as a Bobcat and then finished up at Carroll College and then came back and coached here. And infectious smile, great kid, tremendous family, and tough as nails. That's kind of how I describe him. And so, again, my program comparison, we were watching film, and that's a big part of our evaluation is who did they look like and how do they fit in for us. And I thought he played a lot like a young Braden Conkle did coming out of Belgrade. And so very excited about Eli and his future. And obviously that competitiveness and that coming from a winning program, he checks that box for sure. Junior Bergen, guy that kind of kept us waiting for a while. Junior has a flair for the dramatic, both on and off the field. And so a guy that we were in I feel like a pretty competitive recruiting battle with. And I think that the reason I really believe Junior chose Montana State is because the reputation that we have in the state, how we treat our players, the relationships that we form that are authentic and not transactional, and the growth that young men can make outside of the white lines here at Montana State because of the investment that we make in them as people. And so very, very excited about him. I think he's an electric player. You pull up his huddle highlights. There's a bunch of guys that played against him that are going to play for us at Billings West that don't like some of his highlights because he trucked about 4 of our guys there. But he's a guy that, his versatility, which is always something that we look at. I think he could be a starting corner in this league. I think he could be a starting slot in this league. And heck, another guy that's played a bunch of quarterback. I mean, you're going to see that continue to be a theme for us. Quarterbacks are generally the best leaders on the team, some of the smartest guys on the team, best athletes on the team. Well, you look at Eli Abbey, and here's Junior Bergen, a guy that transitioned from playing defensive back and wide receiver as a junior to being the starting quarterback after never having done it. And all out of Troy Anderson type of guy still takes his team all the way to the state semifinals. So fired up to get Junior in the house, and nice little cherry on top of the sundae for us this morning. Paul Brott. This guy is going to make I know his number one goal is to make everybody forget that 2 other brothers played at Montana State. And everybody goes, well, is he like Wilson or is he like Mitch? Or Bill wants to know, is he like his mom or he's like his dad? And Mitch had an edge. There's no doubt. And so does Paul. And Paul's a little different athlete than Mitch. He's not quite as tall, but he's a little more twitchy. You can see he's a D lineman. We project him as being an interior defensive lineman for us. But I was super impressed with how this guy played in the state championship game. I thought that had West been able to pull that game out, this guy would have been the MVP. The way he protected and blocked on the offensive line and how disruptive he was on the defensive line in that game speaks 100% to his competitiveness. And that streak will be there for us, and that toughness and that edge. And so, and quite honestly, it just wasn't right not having a Broad around the building this year. So we're excited to add Paul and looking forward to his future here at Montana State. Cade Cutler, young man who I actually was kind of rivals with his dad when I was in college. His dad played running back when he got to Western Montana, and I was a linebacker, and we butted heads every day. And then we became very good friends out of mutual respect later in life. And this young man has been a joy to recruit. Some guys, you just enjoy the conversation every time you get to talk to them. They kind of have that infectious energy and just that real positive vibe. And this kid's tough as nails and just a tremendous leader. I mean, I tell Mike, his dad, this, I think Flint Creek might have been able to win a state championship without their coach, but they wouldn't have won it without your quarterback, and that's Cade. And so I'm really proud that he's a part of our program, and I know he's going to do great things for us. really feel like he was one of the better all-around players in the state. And had he played at the single A or double A level, would be viewed that way. And I know he was recruited that way for a reason. And so excited about him. Again, another quarterback, shocker, but a guy that could play a variety of positions for us. I think he could be a talented running back. I think he could grow into a linebacker like his dad did down the road. Could come in and play safety. But, you don't worry about what seat somebody's in. You just get the right people and you put them on the bus. And so that's why we got Cade Cutler. Neil Daly. Neil, I think, is a guy that has a huge upside. This guy's a really good track athlete, a really good basketball player, really didn't embrace football until late in his high school career, his junior year and into his senior year. And all indications from Coach Stanton at West are that, the two guys that worked the hardest in their program in the offseason and, didn't miss workouts, took it seriously every time, pushed other people, were Neil Daly and Paul Brott. And that combination we're excited to have back with us. I think this guy's got an unbelievable upside. We have him listed as an edge player for us. Again, I'm not so sure he wasn't one of the better tight ends in the state. They flexed him out, really played like a wide receiver in a lot of games and was still one of the better players on the field. Played inside linebacker at West. I know he can play inside linebacker. It's physical, long, fast. This guy's got that rare combination of size and speed that people are all looking for. And so feel like this guy was a next level get for us. I do know there were some people that sniffed on him late. I think that if it was a normal year and people had got out, Neil Daly's the type of athlete that Mountain West schools and some Pac-12 schools would have been talking about. But we were able to kind of close the borders this year, so that helped. Another guy that I would put in that category, and I really feel like Kenneth was the most dominant high school football player over the last 3 years. If you just look at his body of work from his sophomore year to his senior year, and even with missing some time as a senior, I don't know that there was anybody more disruptive than this young man in the state of Montana over the last 3 years. You put him on the edge of the defense and nobody can really block him. He's got tremendous power and explosion. He's not a bad running back in his own right. He'll probably beg for a few carries down end on short yardage and goal line, and it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to give him the ball. But he's a legacy. His dad's a great Bobcat. It means a lot for us to get this kid to stick around and go to Montana State. Was highly recruited. And at the end of the day, I think that he saw that everything that he wanted, he could get right here. World-class education, win championships, first-class facilities, and be close to mom and dad and let them be able to share in his experience. And so extremely excited to keep him and get another Bozeman Hawk in the fold here. Speaking of Bozeman Hawks, right on cue, Luke Fedek. So this guy, I don't know, it's probably 3 years ago, my second year here, and we're having our individual camps. And at that time, Bozeman High's team wasn't coming. We didn't have our team camps rolling yet. And so the following years, subsequently, Luke would come with the team. But every individual camp that we had, prospect camp, he was there. And I remember him starting out at wide receiver, and I think Matt was the wide receiver coach at the time. And I'm like, Coach Miller, who's this kid from Bozeman? What's his deal? Oh, he's going to be a sophomore, and his name's Luke Fedek. And I'm like, is he maybe not one of the better wide receivers here? And then, 2 years later, he's doing inside linebacker drills, and I'm grabbing Bobby going, is that the Fedek kid? He might be one of the better inside linebackers here. We just kept – and he's just a grinder. I mean, everything that through our research showed was one of the hardest working guys there is totally into building his body the right way. And he ended up playing defensive end for Bozeman this year. Really sacrificed probably some individual accolades for what the team needed him to do. And he embraced that, playing opposite of Kenny on the D-line for the Hawks. And that's all you need to know. You got one of the hardest working guys on the team who's one of the most selfless guys on the team. He's going to make a great Bobcat. And so we're very excited about his future as well. My main man, Jace Fitzgerald here. So Jace is, I guess we could call him a legacy, even though his dad played for Montana on the 95 national championship team. So his older but shorter brother, RJ, and RJ be the first one to tell you that he, probably got the short end of the stick on the genetics. He's, I think Jace is pushing 6'3" right now. And this is in a long line of tremendous athletes that we've been able to garner from Beaverhead County High School. It's a program that I think just mirrors us in terms of what we expect out of our kids: character, accountability, toughness, and pride and loyalty, and what they put on. In their case, it's blue and gold, and in our case, it's blue and gold. And so I think Jace is a guy who played transition to quarterback this year for Dylan and played primarily a slot receiver and DB for him as a junior. he's, again, a guy that I think can end up playing a variety of positions depending on how he grows and develops, but a guy that we knew we wanted in the program. High character young man, tremendous student, and, you know, got to have another Fitzy, man. If he brings the kind of energy RJ does every day, we'll be pretty happy with him. Okay, we'll do Elijah, and then we'll take a quick kind of question break. We'll take some halftime here. So Elijah is a guy that, again, I do not believe that Elijah is someone that would have been, I think there were two things that we benefited from. Number one, he was a young man that wanted to be a Bobcat his whole life. And we offered him, and he was the first commit in this class. And he's stuck with us all the way through. If you watch this guy's tape, I will tell you, he compares favorably to Will Dissly when Will Dissly was coming out of high school at Bozeman High. And I know that because we were recruiting Will when I was at Washington. He ended up becoming a Husky and played D-line for me before he transitioned to tight end. And I think Elijah could do the same thing. I think he could play defensive end. I think he could play tight end. He could do a lot of things. But I think he's a guy that has a tremendous, tremendous ceiling and is a next level type of recruit. I really believe that this guy, when I compare him to other guys that I've coached and recruited over the years, I feel like he's a Mountain West Pac-12 type of prospect. And that's putting a little bit of heat on him. But that's the expectation. I think he's a guy that, and he's got an edge. I mean, he just plays the game the right way. Tremendous family. And, you know, we're excited about him. I think he's a big time get for us, in my personal opinion. All right, I'll stop sharing here for a second, and we'll maybe take a few questions since I'm sick and tired of hearing myself talk. So ask a long question so I can have a drink of water.
All right, Alex, you're the quarterback of this group, so lead us off.
Ooh, okay. Thank you, Coach. Congratulations, first of all, on a big, great day. So 9 in-state players, and 2 specifically, like you just talked about, from Bozeman. How does that positively impact your program and kind of help the guys who are coming in from out of state?
Yeah, I think we've said this for a long time. Our arms and legs are always going to come from, our heart and soul rather is going to come from the state of Montana. We might have to go get some arms and legs elsewhere, but this is who we are, who we've been, what we built this program on from the day I got here. And, whether it's providing opportunities for young men to walk on and earn scholarships like RJ did, or it's identifying guys like Troy Anderson that we feel like could be the next great Bobcat. And certainly we feel like there's guys in this group that have that potential. And it's something that, there's a reason why I hired BJ Robertson when I got here. And I said, you are the in-state guy. That's your job. Because the only people that I don't even know if there's anybody that doesn't like BJ. And so, let's be honest, Danes and Gianforte are doggone lucky that BJ Robertson didn't decide to jump into the political arena, because neither one of them would be in office right now. And so he does an awesome job developing relationships. But the other thing is, he forces our coaches on our staff who maybe have primary areas elsewhere to stop and watch that Montana kid. And if you don't have that person that's constantly advocating for that Montana kid, it's easy to look over him. Well, this guy's from California, he plays in the Trinity League, or this kid's from Texas and plays 6A football. And then I look at Elijah Reynolds and I'm like, or Kenneth Biden or Bailey, or, you go down the list and you're like, I think these guys are as good as any of those guys. And they're right here in our backyard, so let's not neglect them. And maybe one of the silver linings of this COVID thing was we knew who these kids were. And we knew that they fit us. And we didn't really have the ability to go out and see what else was out there. So it made us stick a little closer to home and really examine the talent that was right here in front of us. And I do think it was a great year in Montana, and we benefited from that. And I think actually both in-state schools did. I think that there was more guys than a normal year. And so I think that was a positive for both of us. And so, we're excited to have a couple more Bozeman Hawks for sure too.
And just overall, if you could describe this entire recruiting classes with 1 or 2 words, what would it be and why?
Well, I think, again, kind of the measurable things that are obvious to me. I think we've got a lot of winners. We got a lot of state champions, a lot of runner-ups. Those types of guys are in this class. I think it's a very intelligent group of young men. I think when you look at these guys' academic accomplishments, they're equally impressive as their athletic accomplishments. And then like I said, I think this is a loyal group. I think these guys wanted to be Bobcats, and they knew this was the right place for them. I think there was an emotional connection between them and our university and our staff. And, like I told them the other night, we had a virtual official visit with the guys and their families. And one of the things I told them, I said, number one, congratulations. You worked your tail off. Not everybody gets a chance to play Division I football. And number two, lucky you. You get to come to a top 10 place you can live on any list that you look up in the world. Okay. You get to come to a university that's got top 10 programs all over the place in the 125 different academic areas that we offer. And you got a place that's also a top 5 football program. And we're building what I think is going to be the best football only facility in the Big Sky Conference. So it's a win-win, right? And so that was those are the things that we kind of talked about. And I really believe that's what made this fit right for them.
So I'll pass it along to the next person.
John Miller, what do you got?
Coach, can you talk about the difference this year in the recruiting process than in the years past?
Yeah, it was big. Like I said, usually it's about a 9 to 12 month cycle in recruiting for us at the FCS level, and you start to identify kids kind of right after the season. You start in your own backyard, and then you spread out a little bit. And by the time we get into mid-April, we're sending coaches out all over the country, and they're going into high schools, picking up transcripts, eyeballing kids, trying to get kids to our camps. And then we start throwing the offers out, right? Which is, means nothing, quite honestly. And it's your ticket to recruit them in the way things work now. And then you push into the kind of the camp season of June, where you're trying to see kids, get them on our campus and spend some time with them. And then you kind of get into the close of trying to build your class and finish with those commitments by the time we start playing. And none of those things happened. Literally none of those things happened. We didn't get out and see kids. We had to educate them on, hey, this is going to go faster. You're going to, an offer right now that you might wait until maybe August to commit to, you might want to think about doing that earlier. Because like I said, we kind of had the sniper rifle out. We kind of went 1, 2, 3. All right, that guy's out, go get 2, and trusted our evaluations. Excuse me.
Coach, does it help to have some Bozeman kids ease the transition from kids from other states?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not just Bozeman. I mean, I think it's Montana kids in general. And a lot of times, the Bozeman kids can show them the lay of the land here, but the Montana kids will take them down to Beaverhead County or over to Billings or up to Kalispell. And then they really start to become Montana kids. And that's always a big part of the indoctrination process is the in-state guys take care of the out-state guys for a while. And then the cool thing is to see when the out-of-state guys start taking them back to, hey, let's come home to Florida with me or come down to California with me. So it goes both ways.
Thanks, Coach.
Paul Schwedelson.
We'll do Paul, and then Paul, after you, we'll jump back in and finish things up and then finish with some more questions.
Cool.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, obviously this cycle was different, but in terms of the types of your recruits you're bringing in, how much do you feel like it's, growing similar, just as you kind of find what fits, the more and more time?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Number one, we spent a lot of time really examining our recruiting process with some of the free time that we had. And, we now have kind of a body of work to look at and look at some data and say, okay, over our 4 years here, these are the guys that we've recruited and these are the ones that panned out and really worked well for us. And these are the guys that didn't. And now let's talk about why. What were the red flags in the recruiting process that we should have paid attention to? Is there a geographic area that seems to work better for us? What are the personality traits and characteristics that seem to help kids fit? And so working on that part of it and really digging in on what works for us was tremendously important. And then remembering what got us here, recruit length and speed. And if we can get long guys, we can make long guys big sometimes. And, one of the guys that we'll talk about here in a second, Titan Fleshman, who was a tight end his junior year, and now he's a 6'6", 260-pound first-team All-State offensive tackle. And he's a tremendous athlete too. So, sticking to who we are, and we definitely have a DNA. Like blue-collar kids work for us. Prima donnas don't. And so kids that are selfless, that just happen to be great football players, like, talk about what Casey Bauman and Tucker Rovig sacrificed for our team a year ago in terms of their personal, accolades or their ego. Look at, a guy like Travis Johnson or Kevin Cassis. I mean, our best players are our most unselfish players, and that's our DNA. That's the being of team that makes us, I think, who we are. And so those were the guys that we were looking for. Give me a great player who's all about the team.
And then I'm just wondering, obviously, there's some states that played this fall, some states that didn't in terms of high school. Maybe just in terms of, some other states not having that fall.
Yeah,
season.
I think that for us, the one state that there were probably two states that stick out the most. I mean, we really didn't mess around with California this year. Okay. But the place that we've really found some high quality players for us is that I-5 corridor, Washington and Oregon. And they're both conspicuously absent from this signing class. And there's two reasons for that. It's not just that they didn't play football in the fall this year. It's also that we never got out in the spring last year. And so not being able to kind of identify those kids, we recruited some kids from those areas that we had ties with, but we didn't get in as deep with them as we would have, I think, if we'd have just been out in the spring. If we'd have just been out in our spring recruiting cycle, we would have had our list. We would have evaluated it. We would have put that sniper rifle on them. But that didn't happen. And then when you couple that with guys not playing in the fall, it really did hurt kids from those states. And we'll get back over there and start recruiting again.
Thanks. Those were my questions.
Okay. All right. Well, let me wrap up with some of the bios here, and then we'll continue on with any further questions. Okay. All right. Sean Austin, QB1. This kid's tough now. So this is a team a year ago. CUNA High was at 4A, which is the second largest classification in the state of Idaho. And they won a state championship. He was the MVP for the state at that level, at the 4A level. And then it went to the state championship game in basketball. Their team ended up losing, but he was selected as the defensive player of the year in basketball at his level. Well, CUNA goes from 4A to 5A this year. And of course, they're going to take their lumps a little bit. They graduated a bunch of studs that had just gone undefeated and won a state championship. And now they got to go up against teams that are a classification above them. And they definitely had some growing pains, but Sean was still selected as a first-team all-conference quarterback. And I think that speaks to his toughness. I mean, and he didn't have a lot of guys blocking for him, and he had to run for his life, but that's his skill set. I mean, he's a creative guy outside the pocket. He can turn too, meaning he can throw from a bunch of different platforms very accurately. He's got good speed. He's a tremendous leader, and he's a hell of a competitor. And really, this kid was a guy that we felt like was a steal. We felt like that, again, the fact that a lot of other places didn't get into the state of Idaho and get to go watch this kid in person and see his size and those types of things. I think that hurt him a little bit in the recruiting process, but it helped us. And my comparison to him is Jake Plummer. That's who he reminded me of, watching him play in high school and watching Jake play in high school. They're very similar body types. Both got the flow and hair, and tough as nails kids. So that's our QB in this class is Sean Austin. Zach Black, a first-team All-State defensive lineman from state champion, 5A state champion, Rocky Mountain High School in Meridian. Highly recruited kid within the state of Idaho, is a big physical interior defensive lineman. Played in a scheme that was similar to ours in high school, 3-4 scheme, and played a lot of nose, and was a dominant interior defensive lineman at the largest classification at the school that has won 2 out of the last 3 state championships. So he's from a great program, same program as Zach Red and Connor Wood, and I think has the ability to be a next really, really good interior defensive lineman for us. Titan Fleshman, young man I was speaking about a minute ago. Century High School, 4A high school out of Pocatello. And this guy was a really athletic tight end a year ago and grew, and they moved him to tackle. So he's still got that athleticism of a tight end, but now he's got the size of a tackle. He is a 6'6", 250-pound kid right now. Really a lot like a Dylan Mahoney type of athlete out of high school, and I think only bigger. So that would be my program comparison for those guys that remember Dylan a few years ago. And I just think this is, if you want to recruit a prototypical tackle in the Big Sky Conference, this is what they look like. They're athletes that have good length, wingspan, and room to grow. And that's exactly what Titan has. One of my favorite guys to recruit. This guy has personality plus, always upbeat, always positive, and was a lot of fun through the process. Aaron Gurley, So this is one of two Arizona kids that we got into down there out of Greenway High School in Phoenix. Very good program. Aaron, again, you can kind of see he's going to grow into an interior defensive lineman for us. Played a little bit on the edge at Greenway. Actually holds the school record for sacks. And so we'll transition him as he continues to develop within our program, I believe, into a 4-eye in our odd scheme and a 3 technique when we get into our 4-down. And so I think Aaron's a guy that is going to had a little bit of an injury. They started late in Arizona, so they weren't going to play early. Then they started playing, and he had a couple games in and had an injury that set him back a little bit. But we're excited to see how he develops, and I think he's got the ability to breathe. Really, there's 3 interior D linemen, and being Paul, Zach, and Aaron in this class that we feel really good about in terms of our future. Hunter Parsons was the late addition in this group. I don't know that he's going to end up playing linebacker. He's probably 6'4", 220, and got a lot of versatility. They did not play high school football in Nevada. We've been recruiting this kid for a while, had evaluated his junior film, had made an offer off his junior film. And then, of course, he never got up here. Finally, he and his mom came up on a trip a few weeks ago, and I think that solidified that he wanted to be here. He fits our DNA to a T and is extremely versatile. Again, a guy I think could grow into a field end, could play inside linebacker or could play on the edge, and played a ton of quarterback for him as well, Wildcat quarterback. So it's just like you go collect guys that look like this. Neil Daly, Paul Brott, Elijah Reynolds, Hunter Parsons. I can go down the list. That's the DNA, right? That's what we're trying to get, is these guys that are long, rangy, run well, high football IQ. And we get enough of them, we'll be pretty good. Andrew Patterson, you got to have some guys that can run. So that's where he comes in. 700-meter guy, another Arizona kid. I think both Coach Frazier and Coach Beal did a great job developing a relationship with him. Came up on his own dime in the summer with his mom. That was probably key, being that he's an Arizona kid. And this guy can fly. And I think he's got a program comparison for me would be Charles Brown. Very similar body type, very similar skill set. And he's a little bit more of a natural ball catcher than Charles was out of high school. And I think this guy can do a lot. He can play in the slot. We can put him out at X, and he can blow the top off the defense. So he's a guy that you got to have guys like this in this league that are going to be able to threaten the defenses. And I think Andrew does that, and we're excited about him. Tyson Pottinger. So another old Western Montana connection. Actually, this goes all the way back to St. Mary's High School. Tyson's dad, Troy, and I were best friends in high school and went and played college football together and got in a lot of trouble. And luckily, Tyson's way smarter than that. And so this guy's not only was he a second-team All-State defensive back at the largest classification, team captain at Coeur d'Alene High School, which was a semifinalist this year. They actually lost to Rocky in the semis, the team that Zach Black plays for, who's also an Idaho top scholar. So that's not athletes, that's Idaho top scholar. And so this guy is brilliant both on and off the field. He's a coach on the field, was how Sean Amos, his coach, described him. High football IQ. My program comparison is Ty Okada, only bigger. Tyson's mom was an All-American volleyball player at Idaho back in the day, and Tyson's got her height and is, I think, going to keep growing. He's in that 6'2" range right now, and probably about 180 pounds. And after a year in the program, he'll be around 200. And like I said, I think he's that kid that is a lot like Ty Okada in terms of his FBI, but he has a little bit more range and size. Dice Shepard, Gillette, Wyoming, Thunder Basin High School. This is a team that BJ kind of recruited their team to come to camp for a couple of years, and that's how we got to know Dice. And even back when he was a sophomore, he stood out. You're like, who's that kid? That guy, okay, he moves different than everybody else. He looks different than everybody else. He plays a little bit different. And we've had a lot of luck in recent years with these Wyoming kids that have been, kind of maybe overlooked by their in-state school, but then they come up here and they find a home. You go back to Coy Steele and then Garrett Kuhn, who you guys didn't have an opportunity to see, but Garrett's going to be a really good player. Both those guys were Wyoming Gatorade Players of the Year, came here as walk-ons, and now Coy's obviously a starter for us and a scholarship guy. But Dice, I think, can be the next guy in that line. I mean, he's a prototypical tight end size, about 6'4", 230, a true Y inline tight end, can block, is physical on the edge in terms of the run game, and has good pass catching skills. So excited about his future. And then Noah Smith. Noah's a young man that, so we got in this class, you can see like we've got kind of those speed guys like Junior Bergen and like Andrew Patterson. And then we got a longer, more athletic guy. And Noah actually played a lot of Wildcat quarterback. Joshua High School is where he's from. I'm sorry. And he's a guy that is sneaky fast. When you watch his film, you go, okay, kind of has that like Mitch Herbert type of build, long athletic receiver, but then he turns it over better. He has, I think, better top end speed. And that was the thing that really separated him in the evaluation process. And so with Lance being a senior next year, we kind of wanted to get a longer body back in the wide receiver room as well. Okay, Simeon Woodard. So most of the guys that we signed as DB were safety body types. We do have a gray shirt coming in, Max Lindsay from the Oregon area, who will join us in January. Who'll be a corner, and then Simeon. And this was like a great example of the analogy I used about the sniper rifle. So we were really only recruiting about 4 or 5 corners, and corners are a position that are a premium. So usually you have a little bit deeper list, and that was kind of the challenge to Coach Reisinger's like, hey, look, what else do you got to do right now? I mean, it's not like we're game planning. So just go outwork people and let's get a good one. And boy, did we. I mean, this kid out of San Antonio had 3 interceptions in their state playoff game last week. He can run. He's got tremendous hips, which is a great characteristic. He's got really flexible hips, breaks on the ball well, and is physical on the edge. And so we feel like this guy's, losing a guy like Tyrell Thomas that's got a ton of experience in our program, who played early. And I could see a guy like Simeon coming in and doing that as well because of the caliber that he's played against in high school. And Cole Snyder, the big Canadian. He's actually originally from Calgary, Alberta, but did go to kind of a prep school in Montreal. And both his grandfather and father attended Montana State University. And so that was a little bit of a tie-in. And a few years ago, we sent BJ up and said, well, let's see if we can get some Canadian guys down to our camps. And Cole was one of the guys that showed up, and he was really more of a tight end body at the time. And kind of looked at him and we're like, okay, I think this guy's got the chance to maybe grow some. Might not be ready right now. What if we gray shirt him? And so we pushed his enrollment back to January, and he did not disappoint. He is now 6'5", about 295. And so he's that kind of traditional tackle body that you're looking for. And, usually the Canadian guys take a year or so to get used to the U.S. game. But he's a guy that's been around it and has some ties, like I said, to Montana. And it's always good to get a big body from up north. All right. I think I'll stop sharing, and then we'll move back on with questions.
Cole, start.
Did you say me, Bill?
Yes, sir.
We
Okay,
refer
I
to
just-
Coulter's
what's-
Tommy today. So if we call Tommy, you'll know.
All right. Yeah. So I guess going back to Kenneth from Bozeman, I'm just curious what his recruiting process was like. Obviously, a guy who got some FBS interest, but obviously a guy who has some MSU ties.
Yeah. Well, he was very thoughtful through the process. I mean, he had been literally all over the country. I think kind of one of their family kind of summer traditions was going and checking out different camps around the country, all, Clemson, et cetera. And that was, I think, something they really enjoyed doing. I mean, it was a way for them to travel, get out to see the country, and have that bond of football that they had in their family. And we, it was clear early on that we would be lucky to have Kenneth, and we threw an offer out very, very early in the process. And so he knew, I think, that we wanted him, and that, I think it was almost like a security blanket for him. Like, hey, I can go check other things out, but I got a great thing here. And to his credit, I really think that he looked at everything on face value. And there were some places that I think maybe expressed interest early on and then kind of fell off. And I think he felt the love. I think he felt like, you know what, go where you're wanted. And I think didn't hurt that, and mom and dad probably helped us a little bit. So that wasn't bad. And, but I think it was an interesting process for him. I think he got to see a lot of different things, going back to his freshman year in high school, coming out of his 8th grade year, and be around a lot of different coaches and see a lot of programs. So I think it was a very educated decision. He took his time, and I think he weighed his options. And I think that I mean, I really do think that our facility helped us a lot. You know, and the fact that we were building that new facility, I think, was a tipping point for not just him, but for a number of these young men to know that this university is going to invest in football. You know, they're going to put their money where their mouth is, and to see what's coming on that south end, I think really does help us.
And you talked about the importance of finding, length and speed with these guys. So was that a little bit more difficult virtually, compared to years past when you could go see them and watch them?
Yeah, identifying measurables, it was like, all right, here's what I need you to do. Take your phone and get a tape measure. No, I'm kidding. Go into the bathroom and tell me what the scale says. But that was, I mean, there was all kinds of videos out there of kids doing that. Like, they've been coached up. Like, this is what you got to do so people can see what your height and weight is. That's why we stuck to what we knew and didn't pull the trigger on kids unless they got on our campus or we had seen them in person. And so that definitely did help us in the process. And I think the discipline to do that is going to pay off for us.
And lastly, and this may be a little off topic, but obviously the spring season is now on the horizon. So how is the team gearing up for that?
Well, they're all home for Christmas, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they're not, having too much Christmas cheer and eating too much, but not a lot of control over that right now. I think that's one of the problems with the spring season is usually you go into a season and you got your guys around you through the months of June and July as you go into August training camp. And here we're going to try to go into a season where the kids have been off on their own for 7 weeks and then bring them back and try to get them ready for a season in January and play in February. So, I mean, there's some logistical things that are going to be challenging for sure. Actually, probably more challenging than dealing with COVID.
And I was going to say, just what has the planning process been like? Because obviously you've had some time to think about it, but there's obviously going to be some unknowns.
Yeah, I think that's why just like one thing we've learned is you got to have alternative plans. And so you go into it with plan A, but you got plan B ready to go. And then usually a lot of times you'll end up kind of with these hybrids too. Like, well, this would be our ideal situation. We could probably live with this and maybe we can meet in the middle somewhere. And so we work off a couple of different training models when they get back in January. And we'll kind of see where it all lands.
All right, that's all I got. Thanks, Jeff.
Eddie Messel, go ahead.
All righty. Well, Coach, you alluded to it a little bit, how great it is being able to recruit here in your own backyard. But how nice was it to be able to find some of those guys, like a guy like Junior Bergen that we got to watch this year. And he's probably just as athletic as anybody I've seen in South Florida growing up.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. You're looking over exactly what you need, and you forget to make eye contact with it when it's right in front of you. And I think again, I credit BJ for always being that advocate for these Montana kids, and I credit our staff for having the discipline to kind of stick to our guns and say, no, you know what, we're prioritizing Montana because we know these kids, and we know whether they're going to fit us. And having that discipline is a really hard thing to do because there's always, you always use the analogy of like, hey, you ask some girl to prom and 2 days later you see some other girl walking down the hall and you're like, maybe I should have asked her to prom. It's easy to get distracted, and you got to have some discipline, and you got to dance with the one you took. That's what we're trying to do around here. And so that's one of the things that we talk about a lot is that level of commitment that it takes to be great. And we're committed to recruiting Montana, and I think that shows in this class.
And that's all I got. We've been talking a long time. I know you're probably tired. I'm good.
I am tired. I'm exhausted.
Sean Rainey, do you have anything?
Yeah, Coach. I think it might be kind of fascinating to us or the outsiders about how moving forward with the scholarships and the numbers is all going to work. It's probably going to be a headache, absolutely, for you guys. What was the approach going into this year with this signing class, knowing that's all going to be kind of a mess in the next couple of years?
Really good question. I mean, and it did affect some of the decisions. We'll end up probably gray shirting some more kids that we wouldn't normally do because we've got to be able to balance out the guys that end up deciding to stay and come back in the fall of 21. And so, but that's still totally up in the air because we don't even really know what the spring of 21 is going to look like. And so you're kind of going into this again, you're going, okay, if X, then Y, if Y, then X. It's like, okay, we don't know where our numbers are going to be. And it's always a Rubik's Cube anyway at the FCS level, because we have our equivalency number, we have our total counters, and then we also have our institutional limit. And so balancing all of that and not knowing how many guys that are the super seniors, that whatever you want to call them, are going to be coming back, but also knowing what the heck, man, those might be our best recruits. If I can get Chase Benson to come back, that's, he's going to be better than Zach Black year one, And so it is a tremendously challenging thing. And we've been basically dealing with this, Sean. We're in the same spot we were in July. Okay. I want you to understand that. Like, basketball is actually playing. FCS football's in the exact same spot we were in July. We have made up zero ground here. Okay. We're still sitting there going, okay, there's a schedule on paper and they're saying we can start on that day, but we don't really know if this is going to happen or not. So we're just in limbo, and they got to stop. This has just gotten so far out of hand. It's not fair what we're doing to these kids. It's difficult on our staff. Heck, we're booking rooms in Sacramento for stuff that we don't even know is going to happen or not. And, so to your point, it has gotten very challenging, and we'll work through that. The numbers part of it usually kind of takes care of itself. But it did affect how we recruited, because I think you got to be honest and upfront and say, hey, if, John Clark wants to come back, I'm going to bring him back. So this may push you back. And I think they got that and appreciated the fact that we were candid with them about it.
And last for me, you talked about the disadvantages, the challenges, not being able to go into a Washington or Oregon like you normally do. But, every Big Sky coach has that. But maybe what are the disadvantages of, for like a school like you or Montana, where you can't bring the kids on to, a place that has facilities and stuff that are, will wow kids more than any other school in the Big Sky?
Yeah, I always think that the secret for us is getting them to Bozeman, right? Because the idea of Bozeman is not as good as Bozeman itself. If you're a kid from Timbuktu and you don't know anything about it. And I think, when I was at Boise State, we benefited from the same thing. Like, they would land in Boise and they'd be like, this is Boise, Idaho. This is all right, And I think we get the same thing when kids get to Bozeman. They're like, this is Bozeman, Montana. This is pretty awesome. And so that is a disadvantage for us. And the other disadvantage is that we're one of the more isolated Division I programs in the country. We might be the most isolated. If you draw a string and find the next town of 1 million people, it's a long ways away. If you're in Sacramento, it doesn't take much for a kid to go from Sheldon High School in Elk Grove and end up at Sac State. That's a pretty short drive. Same thing to Davis. And so there are some advantages to being in a population center that has a lot of options for you. But I also think that the same things that create disadvantages for us become advantages. And what I mean by that is the kids that we have up here are different. They fit us. And, we can find those kids elsewhere, but they're more abundant in our own backyard anyway. So blessing in disguise.
Thanks, Coach.
Tommy?
We have a first-time caller named Tommy. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, this is our illustrious producer's computer, but it's working great. Sound is awesome. Jeff, I'll save most of the stuff for the show, but one thing I want to ask you is just about recruiting with a new recruiting coordinator. Seems like Jimmy Veal hit the ground running. I know he's got experience doing it in the Big Sky, but what did you think of just his overall plan, and how did that help during a largely unorthodox year?
Well, the one word that I would use is energy. And I think when you put BJ and Jimmy together, there's way too much caffeine. And so, but I'm telling you, man, the thing that I loved about Jimmy, he took a lot of pride in making sure that he had a hand in recruiting every single kid in this class. If we offered a kid and that kid committed, Jimmy Beal became their best friend. And when you got Jimmy and BJ, it's like Abbott and Costello. I mean, they're peanut butter and jelly. I mean, those guys were a great team, and it worked really well for us to have those two guys kind of working together. And then we did reorganize, we did restructure a little bit. Bobby Daly came on as our defensive recruiting coordinator. You can see there's more of a defensive flavor to this class, and that was done by design. I had an offensive guy being our recruiting coordinator my entire time that I've been here. And it's only natural that sooner or later that, things are going to start to tilt a little bit to one side or the other. And so having Bobby in the room where he's going, no, hey, we've got to be disciplined because our numbers aren't quite where they need to be. And this is the guy that we need to get for the defensive side of the ball. And so I think what we did was we went from kind of having this idea that we have one recruiting coordinator and then Cole Moore, who kind of does a lot of things there, to really that we have a working team that recruits. And that includes Cole, Jimmy, BJ, and Bobby Daly. And then on top of that, we also have our creative team that works in conjunction with those guys. And so I think we've done a better job of organizing our recruiting department to reflect what our needs are and making it, not putting anything on any one individual, but the energy that Jimmy brought was phenomenal, and some great ideas from some of the other places that he's worked too. And so that was really helpful.
The hype man, that's what we call him around here. Only other question for you, Coach. Do you feel like because this was different, but you had a chance to delve more into things like film study, character evaluation, that those are good habits that you can carry forward if and when things do go back to the kind of the old model of recruiting?
Yeah, we went through and we built this whole, basically it's I don't know, it has a stoplight on it, red, green, and yellow. And all these questions. And we built this whole process out that were things that we already knew. It was not, we didn't invent anything new, but I think we all kind of had this aha moment of like, this is what's going to help us. And I've used the word discipline a lot in this. And really that's the most important thing. It's easy to get enamored with this really fast kid from South Texas who has, below average grades and probably doesn't even know where Montana is on a map. It takes a little bit more discipline to really dig in and see if this is the right person. Does he have the character attributes that we're looking for? Does he check the boxes athletically? Does he show the toughness that we want? Is he a fit for Montana State? Why will he succeed? Why will he fail? Who is the program comparison? What's your prediction for his career at Montana State? And we went through that process with every kid because we had more time. And you hit the nail on the head. Now, are we going to throw that out the window because we're going to get back into a normal routine? Or are we going to have the discipline to continue to recruit that way? And if we have the discipline to continue to recruit that way, look out.
Anyone have follow-ups?
I have one last one. I'm just wondering about the new facility, how that how that helps in this cycle.
Yeah, well, it's an arms race. A couple of years ago, Montana built their new facility, and then Weber State opened theirs last year, and Northern Arizona's in the process of building one. And so, there's been it's not as easy to recruit to plans as it is to concrete and steel. And so when you can say, here's a fancy picture, here's an animation of what this is going to look like, but then you back it up with a drone shot of this is what it looks like today, that makes a difference. And so for 20 plus years, they've been recruiting to plans around here, wouldn't you say, Bill? And for us to be able to recruit, no, just look over there. There it is. That makes a huge difference. That reality that it's really going to be there and what it's going to look like. And it's going to be a game changer for our whole athletic department, without a doubt. This is going to be a first-class facility. The reason that we took some time to do this, we probably could have got something started at about $12 to $14 million early on, but we wouldn't have had the things that we want. It wouldn't have had hydrotherapy. It wouldn't have had a 120-seat auditorium so that we can have full team meetings. It wouldn't have had the first-class setup that we're going to have in the locker room. And the fact that we chose to have some patience and do it right, I think is going to benefit everybody in the long run. It's going to be pretty nice. We might invite you into it, but I'm not promising. We can Zoom now.
All right. If that's good for everyone, Coach, I'll say thanks for jumping on with us, and thanks to everybody for being part of it.
Appreciate you guys' time today. Thanks for writing about the future Bobcats.
Thanks, Coach.